Flynn is a wonderful man and that it was the media treating him unfairly. He just fired this man, compelled his resignation. Does this take by the president concern you about what you still don't know about that situation?
Well, Chris, a couple things. One, staff can't mislead the people they work for. So I understand that and why Mr. Flynn is no longer working at the White House. I get that. Second, let's let the Intelligence Committee do their work, get the initial facts out there. If further investigation is warranted, then we'll do it at the Oversight Committee, and I'm open to that, certainly supportive of that if that's what the facts point to. No one's ever accused me of not being tough on my own party. So let's do that, but let's also, as Chairman Chaffetz and Chairman Goodlatte said yesterday, let's also look at this leak issue. Let's get all the information for the American people, but let's start first with the Intelligence Committee. They're the committees of jurisdiction, and let's get the facts from them, and then we can proceed.
Now, part of the facts here already need to be highlighted because there is political speculation going on the side of let's look at these leaks that keeps putting out that why was Michael Flynn wiretapped? We do not know that Michael Flynn was wiretapped, but it keeps being said by people who want this investigation into the leaks, and it deserves to be called out. Also, what deserves to be called out, and I'm interested to see if you agree with this, you want to look at the leaks, Jason Chaffetz, but you do not want to look at the underlying substance that led to the leaks.
No, I'm open to all that, but I think let's proceed in a deliberative way here. Let's let the intelligence committees get the facts. If in fact then the oversight committee needs to do more, I'm willing to do that. Like I said before, we certainly did that in the last administration, and I've never been one who's been accused of not being tough on our own party. You can ask former Speaker Boehner about some disagreements we had. So I'm willing to do that, but let's proceed in a deliberative manner to get the facts for the American people, including how this leak happened. How classified information was given to the press, how that's out there, and as you point out, you know, the wiretap and everything, what was behind all that as well?
Well, I don't know that there was any wiretap. It just keeps being said, and we've always had leaks. That's not something that's new, and certainly this president embraced
doesn't make
leaks.
it right. Just because we've always had it doesn't make it right.
Well, that's true.
So let's get to the bottom of it.
But politicians are way too selective about when they're outraged about it. That's
I'm not. Look,
I'm not. You had a president who celebrated WikiLeaks, mentioned him as much as he could. Now he's got a problem with leaks. But that's politics. You said, let's do this in all deliberative fashion. For Benghazi, you encompassed half a dozen probes by 5 different committees. The formation of a select House committee, 33 hearings, $7 million on Benghazi. This, you want to take it slow.
Yeah, that was after the Intel Committee, the Foreign Services Committee, Foreign Affairs Committee, the Oversight Committee had deliberative hearings for a long, long time before Speaker Boehner called for the Select Committee. It was years after. So we did the deliberative process. But when you get to a point where Ben Rhodes is misleading the American people, and we know Secretary Clinton misled the American people, that's what warranted calling for the Select Committee, which I had the privilege of serving on.
And you know that the White House is saying that there was misleading facts here. You have the president who's blaming the media for a firing that, by all accounts from inside his own staff, he was behind. You have just as many discrepancies of fact here. You have arguably as broad or broader implications of national security, but you don't seem as urgent about it. My take.
And Chris, no, I'm going to take the same approach we took with the example you brought up, the Benghazi affair. We're going to take the same approach. Let the standing committees begin to do the work. Let's get the facts. If the Oversight Committee needs to do more work, we'll do that. If at some point there's a requirement or it looks like we need a Select Committee, I'm open to that as well. But let's proceed in the same manner we did for that situation in the last administration.
Which was that when you started to sniff out that there was political resistance to getting to what you saw as the truth, you blew it up and went into a bigger situation. Here we already have Rand Paul, who holds himself out as an independent spirit among Republican-inclined people, and he says, can't waste time having Republicans investigate Republicans. You guys are in control of all of these committees. The idea that it would be done divorced from partisanship is hard to see, given the lack of curiosity from Republicans about the Flynn situation thus far.
There's not a lack of curiosity on my part, and as I've said many times, I'm willing to look at the facts, and if it means sometimes going against your own party, I'm willing to do that. But let's do this in the right way, the way the American people deserve. Let's get all the facts on both what happened, the underlying situation with Mr. Flynn, and on the leak situation as well.
But I'm saying We just haven't seen the political capital being expended here that would give confidence that you guys want to do it. I had Congressman Chris Collins on here who had to explain away your leadership being absent about the Flynn resignation by saying they were having Valentine's Day breakfast with their spouses. Now, of course, he was joking, but it's because the whole thing was a joke. Nobody said anything because this was a president in their same party.
I'm not viewing it as a joke. I'm viewing it as a very serious issue, both what happened with the communications and the leak itself. And I think we should get to the bottom of it, proceed in a straightforward fashion. And if further investigation is warranted, and if a select committee is warranted, I'm open to that as well. But let's proceed like we should and get the truth.
Should the transcript be put out?
I'm open to that too. Let's see. But I mean, again, we want to make sure it's put out in the right way. There's and redacted, and if there's serious classified information there. So I'm open to that as well. But let's proceed through this deliberative fashion. Let's get to the truth on all accounts.
Now, as we segue into talking about Obamacare, because I'll take you at your word about how we proceed on Michael Flynn. We'll see what you guys do and don't do, and we'll take the scrutiny from there. But look at what we're talking about right now. The president may say the media developed this. We both know that that's not true on the face of the facts. This is about what Michael Flynn did, how it was dealt with within the White House, and then how it became exposed. But we're not talking about getting people jobs, about a tax agenda, and about all the things that were supposed to be done that, frankly, waived in the Trump presidency. So how much of a distraction is this coming from the White House?
Chris, we talked about it yesterday. We had a press conference where the House Freedom Caucus, conservatives in the House and the Senate, unveiled what we think needs to happen on Obamacare. Repeal it and replace it with something that's going to actually bring down health care costs. Right, but it's not the dominant dialogue coming out of the White House. That's my point. Well, that's because you guys are talking about the Flynn situation. We could just as well be talking about what we did yesterday, which was this press conference on a key issue, one that the American people elected us to do, repeal a law that's a complete disaster, where the American people were repeatedly lied to about what this law was going to do. Like your plan, keep your plan. Like your doctor, keep your doctor. Premiums will decline. Premiums will decline $2,500. Deductibles will decline. Website will work. Website secure. Emergency room visits will decline. They've actually went up. They were also told these co-ops that were formed were going to be wonderful. 18 of those 23 co-ops have already went bankrupt. So everything they were told about this law was a lie. Right. And now we come forward with a plan to repeal it, saying pass the same legislation we passed a year and a half ago, put that on President Trump's desk, just like we put on President Obama's desk. And then the plan that Senator Paul and Congressman Sanford put forward, which is free market and patient-centered health care that will actually lower costs for all families. Right. That's what we want to put in place. That's what we had a press conference on yesterday. So we could be talking about that versus what you want to talk about.
Well, I want to talk about it as a qualification because it's a matter of national security. Because if you flipped parties in this situation and you had a Russian spy ship off the coast, you had them buzzing a U.S. Navy ship, you had them launching a missile, and the President of the United States, as a Democrat, said nothing, you'd be going nuts. And on top of that, we have what Mike Flynn did, misled the vice president about, who was then kept out of the loop. There are plenty of questions, but let's stick to this issue because it does matter to the American people. There is a report out there that says if you repeal the things you need to put in the plan you want to, you're going to have your own cost overrun issues. Estimates go anywhere from about 20 to 25% of premium increases because you're removing a lot of revenue mechanisms. How are you going to keep costs down in your new iteration of health care for Americans?
Chris, we want a marketplace to form again. Right now, in so many communities across this country, there's only one insurer in the Obamacare exchange. So we want a marketplace to form again. The only way you can do that is to repeal all of Obamacare and then put in place the kind of insurance market that will actually bring down costs. Right now, we don't have a market out there.
What does that mean?
Every other industry, where there's you encourage health savings accounts. You allow interstate shopping for insurance. You allow actually plans that are much more high deductible plans that don't have all the mandated coverages in them, so that certain people can shop for the kind of plan that fits them and their families' needs.
But health savings accounts
that brings down
make plans cheaper, and high deductibles are what you're trying to avoid.
Well, not high deductibles. I mean a catastrophic plan. Excuse me. But you put in a market that will allow those kind of things to happen. That's what's going to bring down cost. Right now, there are so much mandated coverage in every single plan. Some people don't need all the coverage in this kind of plan, but they have to buy a plan that has it all in.
Remember where it came from. People weren't getting
coverage.
Pre-existing conditions weren't getting covered. Caps were closing people out of treatment that they needed. Those protections are not just popular. They were important.
They are important, and they're part of the plan that Mr. Sanford and and Senator Paul brought forward.
All right.
We say in a responsible way, if you've had insurance, you can't get kicked off. But you can't wait and say, I've never had insurance, and then something bad happens to your family, and oh, now you have to insure me. That's not going to work either. That drives up the cost for all families. So our plan says if you've been responsible, you can't get kicked off, and there's no lifetime caps on the coverage you can get if you've had insurance and you maintain insurance.
But that's going to be a tricky proposition to sell people about how when you become sick and you need something, maybe you can't get it because of your previous choices or economic condition. But I get you. I get you. These are complex questions. We're going to have to talk them all out. And to your point, to start this interview, it deserves attention. You will get more time on New Day to discuss this conversation than you will anywhere else. I promise you that. I'll bet you a lunch.
I look forward to it. I look forward to it.